Operation Paperclip was a classified military program. It had a public face. So the idea was that you couldn't very well have 1,600 Germans running around the United States in various military facilities or ultimately in academic institutions and not have an explanation why. And so with the German scientists came a propaganda campaign to call them good scientists. That may be the case. There were 1,600 of them. That may certainly be the case with some of them. And I've actually had people at every one of my book readings so far who had a father or an uncle that was part of Paperclip. But what I will tell you is the men that I focused on had very dark pasts, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So how did I report the story? I was originally working on this book, my first book, Area 51, when I came across these two aircraft designers, and they were the Horton brothers. They designed this aircraft, the Horton All-Wing 5, and you can see it looks remarkably like the B-2 stealth bomber. And when I first saw those two images next to one another, I suddenly realized without very much more explanation how much technology we in fact got from the Reich, and I wanted to know more. What I learned was that while the Horton brothers were overlooked for Paperclip, their boss was not. This is their boss. This is Colonel Siegfried Kneyemeyer. He was one of the Reich's top 10 pilots, and he flew on spy missions. This photograph here is Kneyemeyer about to fly over Norway to choose bombing targets. And Kneyemeyer, you see that's his Paperclip photo there. And when I learned Kneyemeyer came to the United States, I wondered how you could go from having Hermann Göring as your boss, as he was. Now keep in mind, Göring was in charge of the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe. Kneyemeyer was so important to Göring that in documents he refers to him as my boy. So the question for me in my mind was, how do you have this as your boss and then suddenly have the Pentagon as your boss? I learned that when Kneyemeyer retired from the U.S. Air Force in the mid-70s, he was given the Department of Defense Distinguished Civilian Service Award. And that is the highest award that a scientist can get from the Defense Department. And I wanted to know how this could be. I tracked down one of Kneyemeyer's grandchildren who courageously agreed to share the story of his grandfather with me, including a box of papers that he had in the attic. And one of the most interesting things that Dirk Kneyemeyer said to me and made me know that I wanted to write this story, to research and report it, was he said, "Annie, many of my family members say, do not speak about Siegfried's past." But he, being my age, said, you know, a Google search very quickly reveals that Kneyemeyer was Göring's right-hand man. And he said he would rather know the truth about his grandfather than not know it. And so that was one example of a seed planted that I knew there is more to be learned about Operation Paperclip.